I get a strange sense of foreboding every so often about our future, and I believe others probably feel something similar. There is something off, even if it's sometimes hard to pin down or explain. It's happening at a deep level, and it seems to be affecting young people the most. Many are disillusioned and are reporting increased levels of anxiety and depression. And what it comes down to, I think, is sensing that at a deep level our society is not on an upward path. What we're doing, it's not even sustainable. Men and women are going their own way. We seem to be choosing solitude over family. The thing is that being alone doesn't just mean more loneliness and more disconnection. Over time, at a civilizational level, it can only lead to population decline, and eventually the collapse of society as we know it. That is already happening in many countries. In Japan, houses across rural villages are being abandoned, known as the akiya phenomenon. In Italy, decades of low birth rates have left towns and villages empty and decaying. Germany is afflicted with persistent social problems as a result of welcoming unemployed migrants from the Middle East and North Africa. In Spain, riots and unrest are on the rise due to the presence of criminal gangs from countries such as Morocco, and in Britain, locals are clashing with police over the state-sponsored accommodation of illegal migrants in hotels around the country. Being on this path to a more fragmented, socially weaker world is disturbing enough, but there's more to it than that. As human beings, we're doing something you could say is very unnatural, and historically this has always led to collapse or being conquered. The issue is, we don't need each other anymore. Women feel they don't need men. Men are starting to feel the same, especially while we're being so undervalued. And more, adults in general feel they don't need children or don't want to bring them into this world. Society is broken because it has produced conditions that deter family formation. Too many of us are being encouraged and/or forced into a lifestyle revolving around little more than personal gratification. Our often rational choices as individuals are therefore leading us down a dangerous path collectively. This has happened before and, ironically, represents a recurring pattern whereby exceptional prosperity is a forerunner to civilizational weakening. The fall of the Roman Empire came from producing a wealthy but indulgent elite class. The great families withdrew into villas, exploring all kinds of leisure while Rome's frontiers grew unstable. Birth rates among citizens fell, leaving fewer men for the legions and fewer patriots to defend the state. Military service was increasingly avoided, so generals turned to less reliable mercenaries. Invading Goths, Vandals, and Huns pressed into Roman lands, while emperors distracted the crowds with endless games and spectacles. In ancient Greece, Athens reached dazzling heights of wealth and culture, but citizens grew comfortable. Fewer children were born, and their powerful fleet slipped into decline. Sparta, once feared for its iron discipline, dwindled to a handful of families. By the time Thebes rose against them, the Spartans could no longer raise armies of their own and relied on allies to fight. In Carthage, trade made the city rich, but merchant families literally shrank in size. Instead of raising their own fighters, they bought foreign troops. When Hannibal's campaign failed, Rome came back with force. Scipio Africanus destroyed Carthage, and the city never recovered its greatness. The ancient city of Babylon eventually allowed Persian troops to march right in with its gates wide open. Years of indulgence and low fertility had weakened its ruling families. The kings had filled their palaces with luxury, but when Cyrus the Great advanced, the city no longer had strength to resist. The same pattern shows up elsewhere. In Persia, the later Achaemenid kings lived in splendor while discipline was lost. By the time of Darius III, they were carried into battle instead of fighting alongside their men, and the empire fell to Alexander's smaller but tougher army. In Egypt, later dynasties were ruled by incestuous elites who left few heirs. Cleopatra herself married two brothers in succession to keep power inside the family. Among the Mayans in Central America, rulers wasted resources into grand rituals and towering temples. Even as crops failed and famine spread, their great cities were abandoned. The sad truth is that whenever humans manage to break free from discomfort, we eventually drag ourselves back down to a lower state. Optimism and investment for the future give way over time to aimlessness and neglect of duty. That is why we see once great and proud nations quietly folding today. They are shrinking from an unwillingness to bring forth the next generation in greater numbers. And where there was once a strong sense of unity and national pride, there now sits a corrupt, parasitic leadership class, willing to let their nations be overrun by foreigners with whom they share few common values. What lessons can we as individuals take from this? The first is fairly obvious. We must not let ourselves be swept into the same apathy that is dragging our nations down. When people disconnect from life, they become soft and lose their vitality. It's so easy to waste hours on mindless activities. Everyone knows this, but the temptations are there. Time on the couch or in the game chair makes you physically weaker and less in tune with reality. History shows that empires slide into nothingness when they stop trying. You have to stay on your game, even when you have the opportunity to spend all your free hours luxuriating in comfort. Get outside and do other things. Set goals and go after them. We need a sense of mission in our daily lives to thrive. If you never experience discomfort, you not only stop growing, but you become weak and fragile. We also need to prepare for a future where decline and disasters could happen faster than many people imagine. There will be a general weakening of societies and economies as our populations lose vigor. The downtrend will hit hard because population collapse is now global and our world is highly interconnected. One of the most effective responses is to be selective about where you live. Not all places will decline at the same pace and some will hollow out much faster. Areas with aging populations and low birth rates are especially vulnerable. As younger people leave, services dry up, housing demand weakens, and the social fabric frays. Those who stay will lose out in terms of living standards. The smarter choice is to seek out communities with vitality. Smaller cities and regional centers with a younger age profile and opportunities for families will endure better. The trick is to avoid extremes. Not the largest, overstretched capitals, but not the shrinking towns either. Mid-sized, functional places are best positioned to hold up in the years ahead. We already see many Brits fleeing London. Families that once saw it as the heart of the nation are leaving for the countryside or moving abroad. The city is visibly deteriorating with worsening amenities and rising crime, while new arrivals cluster in satellite versions of their homelands. Natives seeking a brighter future are looking elsewhere, choosing places where communities still form and neighbors can count on one another. Early preparation also requires you to manage your finances soundly. Gold is useful as a hedge since it holds value when currencies weaken or markets fail. In terms of investment, property takes on greater risk. In declining regions, values can fall sharply as populations shrink, leaving owners exposed. By contrast, assets tied to healthcare and essential services are more resilient. Just as important is adopting a lean way of living. Reduce unnecessary costs and learn to live well at lower expense. This protects you against inflation and sudden loss of income. Thinking in this way is about positioning. Those who adapt early will enjoy security and quality of life, even as wider systems falter. Decline is coming unevenly. A kind of dystopian future awaits where we have advanced technology all around us, but living standards are falling. Building new capacity for an expanding population is relatively easy. Maintaining infrastructure and services as the population shrinks is far more difficult. Many essentials will become more expensive even as the quality gets worse. Think of the supply of essentials such as electricity, water, sewerage, and waste disposal to a town with a disappearing population. The same geography and systems apply, but the number of people paying for it all drops. That can only result in higher prices and reduced services. Finding fit, capable young people to do important jobs will become harder as they grow scarce. The costs of maintaining property, transport, and personal services will rise. The elderly will suffer as healthcare becomes unaffordable and in some places unavailable, with hospitals and clinics shutting down. While wages may rise, so will taxes. The danger is that young people will lose the incentive to work hard, especially if they see their efforts consumed by supporting an older generation. Skilled workers will leave high-taxing regions, accelerating decline. Economic migrants will be less welcome as locals endure their own financial pressures, adding to societal friction. At the same time, defense and policing will weaken as fewer young men enter uniformed service, leaving nations more vulnerable. Inevitably, many towns and regions will be abandoned. Without a critical mass of young people, communities that once thrived will become hollow, and some areas will turn into wastelands. We need the young for renewal, spark, and vitality. While the world of the future may feel advanced, it will also be more desolate and even more disconnected.